Welcome to one and all. I am Vasanta, Department of Computer Science, Gopalswamy PU College, Mysore. Today we want to start with the fifth session of Inheritance chapter. In the previous session already we explained regarding the weightage of the chapter. Total weightage of this chapter is 5 marks. Only one question they will ask in the annual exam, that is on part D for 5 marks. In the previous session we explained regarding what do you mean by inheritance, types of inheritance, what are the advantages of inheritance, then the visibility mode. Regarding that we explained in the previous session. Whereas inheritance is nothing but creating a new class by using existing class, or we can say that it is a process of acquiring the properties from base class to derived class. Base class aliro properties na derived class ke access madodana navu inheritance anta helbodu. For example, parents have some features, the same features are passed to son. Here the properties are acquired from parents to son, that is nothing but inheritance. Inheritance is the process of creating a new class by using existing class. Then what are the advantages of this inheritance? We are acquiring the properties from base class to derived class. It means that obviously the code can be reused. Only one time we are going to write the code for parents. The same code we are using for the derived class, that is for son. That means the code can be reused. Memory utilization is very less, easy to maintain, easy to extend, as well as the time consumption is also very less here. Only one time we are going to write the code for father, the same code we are using. Once again, that was what happens here, the time consumption will be very less here. These are the few advantages, that is memory can be utilized very less, time consumption is less, code can be reused, easy to maintain as well as easy to extend. Inheritance definition is process of creating a new class by using existing class. Advantages. Then which are the different types of inheritance here we have, that is single level inheritance, multi-level inheritance, multiple inheritance, hybrid inheritance as well as hierarchical inheritance. Then the next concept we explained, that is visibility mode. The visibility mode will control the access specifier of the base class in the derived class. It mainly controls the access specifiers, the members, the functions in the base class that can be accessed in the derived class or not. Regarding that, it is going to tell you. It will control the access specifiers of the members of the base class in the derived class. These are the things in the previous class we explained, that is inheritance, types, visibility mode, advantages. Today I am going to explain you regarding the virtual class. What do you mean by virtual base class? Virtual base class. Virtual class. What do you mean by this virtual class? What are the advantages of this virtual class? Then how exactly it will work? What are the main benefits of this virtual base class? Regarding that, today I am going to explain you. For example, consider we have a base class A. Consider we have a base class A. From this base class, we have derived one more class B. From the same base class, we are creating one more derived class, called it as C. From this, one more derived class we are creating D. Here totally 3 derived class, only one base class we have. See, the properties of A is transferred to B. That means the B class having the properties of A as well as additional properties. If we come to the class C, this is one more derived class. Here this C derived class is derived from the base class A. It means that C has the properties of A as well as additional properties. Next, one more derived class we are creating, that is D. Here this is derived from B as well as C. Whereas this B class is derived from B. This B once again having A class properties. This D is derived from C. Once again is having the A class properties. ಹಾಗನ್ನೋದಾದ್ರೆ D class ಅಲ್ಲಿ B class properties ಇದೆ, C class ಕೂಡ properties ಇದೆ. ಆದರೆ B ಏನಾಗಿದೆ? A ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ಟೀಸ್ ನ ತಗೊಂಡು ಡಿರೈವ್ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಸಿ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ A ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ಟೀಸ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ಡಿರೈವ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಬರುವಾಗ A B and then D, ಈ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಬರುವಾಗ A C and then D. It means that multiple time of the base class the properties are present here. ಈ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಬರುವಾಗ ಒಂದ್ಸರಿ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ಟೀಸ್ ಸೇವ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಈ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಬರುವಾಗ ಕೂಡ ನಮಗೆ ಸೇಮ್ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ಟೀಸ್ A ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ಟೀಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮಲ್ಟಿಪಲ್ ಕಾಪೀಸ್ we will get here from this side as well as from this side. Here one time it will copy, once again when it is coming from this side, once again the A properties are copied here. The multiple copies can be avoided of the same base class by making the base classes virtual. ಹಾಗಂದ್ರೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಬೇಸ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ನ ನಾವು ವರ್ಚುವಲ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಂತ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಮಲ್ಟಿಪಲ್ ಕಾಪೀಸ್ ಆಗೋದನ್ನ ಅವಾಯ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಬೈ ಮೇಕಿಂಗ್ ದ ಬೇಸ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಆಸ್ ವರ್ಚುವಲ್, by making the base class as virtual, we can make avoid of the duplication of the same data. From that, memory can be reduced, time consumption is also reduced here, and it is easy to extend, easy to maintain. That can be done by using making the base class as virtual. How to make the base class virtual? For example, consider we are creating a class A. We are creating a class A. And this class having both data members as well as member functions. In private section we have data members. In public section, for example, we have member functions. Member functions. Then we will close this class. Here we have created one class A and here we are closed. After flower bracket you have to put semicolon. Next we are creating the class B. How to create the class B? This is derived from A class. This acquires the properties of A. Then how to write class? In the previous section I told you how to create a new class, that is derived class. While creating the derived class, first we have to use the keyword class, then derived class, then next colon, then next you have to write visibility mode, then next you have to write the base class. This is the syntax I told you. First class, then derived class, colon, visibility mode, then base class you have to write. In the same way here also we used to write the same thing. First, now I want to create the derived class B. Then class B we have to write. Then next colon. Before mentioning the visibility mode, we have to make the base class as virtual. Then we can able to avoid the multiple copies of the same data of the class A, virtual. Then next public A. It means that we are creating the class B. It acquires the properties of A and we will making A as virtual. Then this B class also contains data members as well as member function. In private section we are mentioning data members, as well as in public we will mention the member function. Member functions. Then next we will close this class. Here how many classes we have created? One is A is the base class and B is the derived class. Next I want to create one more class called as C. Then how to write this one more class? Again class. Here the class, the new derived class is C colon, next virtual, then public. We are creating this C class by using class A. Then after this you have to write A. Now this C also we are created by using the class A. Here we are written public, that's why we can able to access the data as well as function of A in C derived class. Now here also this may having data members. In private section we have data members, and in public section we may have member functions. Next, close this class. Here we are closed. From this A class we have created one is B and one more is C. Next I am creating D. And I make this A as virtual to avoid the duplication of the same data. Now I am creating the class D. That's why here you have to write class D we are creating. This is a derived class. Then colon. Which are the classes I am taking from? Which are the classes I am creating? One is B and one more is C. That's why public B, comma, public C. One is B and one more is C. Here also write down in private section data members, in public section mention member functions. Then close this class. From this, see here, example, here I am creating a class A. And here this have data members as well as member function. Next I am creating class B. This is derived from class A. Here also it having data members and member function. I am making A as virtual to avoid the duplication of the same data once again. Next one more class we are creating, call it as C. This is also here also in public section we are making it as virtual. By that I can able to avoid the duplication of the same data of a class A. Here also it having data members as well as member function. Next we are creating the class D. I am going to creating this class D by using class B as well as class C. Virtual base class mainly used to avoid the duplication of the same data. This is regarding the virtual base class. Next I am going to explain you regarding the abstract class. What do you mean by abstract class? What are the advantages of this abstract class? Then already you come to know virtual. Virtual is mainly used to avoid the duplication, is it no? Then what do you mean by abstract class? Abstract class. Abstract class is a class, but by using this we are not going to create object. ಇದರ ಮೂಲಕ ನಾವು ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅನ್ನು ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ, but it acts as a base class for a new derived class. It is not used, especially this abstract class is not used to create object of a class. Abstract class is not used to create object of a class. It is not used to create object of a class, but it is a base class. By using this we can able to create a derived class using which derived class using which another derived class can be created. Abstract class is not used to create object of a class. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇದರ ಮೂಲಕ ನಾನು ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ನ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ, but it acts as a base class. It acts as base class for new derived class using which another derived class can be created. ಇದನ್ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ನಾನು ಡಿರೈವ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಹೊರತು ಇದರ ಮೂಲಕ ನಾನು ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ನ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ abstract class. Abstract class is a class, but it cannot be used to create object of a class, but by using which I can able to create one more derived class. This is regarding abstract class. Next I am going to tell you regarding how this inheritance will work in constructor as well as destructor. First I am going to explain you regarding what do you mean by constructor as well as destructor. How destructor will work in inheritance. Before explaining this, first I just want to tell you regarding constructor as well as destructor. Constructor is a special member function used to initialize the object of a class automatically. Constructor ಒಂದು ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಮೆಂಬರ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್. ಅದ್ರ ಮೂಲಕ ನಾನು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಇನಿಷಿಯಲೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ಗಳಿಗೆ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂಸ್ನ ಇನಿಷಿಯಲೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಇಟ್ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ಸ್ ಟು ಇನಿಷಿಯಲೈಸ್ ದ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಎ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್. ಅದ್ರ ಮೂಲಕ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಟರ್ಗೆ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಅಲೋಕೇಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Constructor is a special member function used to initialize the object of a class. Whereas destructor is also a special member function. This automatically execute when we are going to destroy the object of a class. Andre constructor andre kattodu anta helbodu, destructor andre kattiroduna ಹೊಡೆದಾಕೋದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಕನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಟರ್ ಅನ್ನುವಾಗ ಕಟ್ಟೋದು ಅಂತ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಟರ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಹೊಡೆದಾಕೋದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಕನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಟರ್ ಕಟ್ಟುವಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಆಕ್ಯುಪೈ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Whereas constructor will occupy the memory space. Whereas destructor is a special member function. This automatically execute when we are going to destroy the object of a class. And this will deallocate the memory space. ಏನು memory ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಆ memoryನ deallocate ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, memory ಖಾಲಿ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. Once if it is free, the same memory can be utilized for other objects. Is it no? Now, how exactly this destructor will work in inheritance? For example, we have one base class and one more is derived class. Derived class. Base class as well as derived class. Consider we have two classes. One is base class and one more is derived class. For example, in both base class as well as derived class, if you have constructor, base class alli ಜೊತೆಗೆ derived class alli ಎರಡರಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ constructor ಇದ್ರೆ first ಯಾವುದು ಎಕ್ಸಿಕ್ಯೂಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ? ಈಗ ನಾನು ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಹೇಳಿದೆ. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಟು ಟೇಕ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಹೋಮ್, ಬೇಸ್ನ ನಾನು ಹೋಮ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀನಿ, ಡಿರೈವ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸನ್ನ ಕಾಂಪೌಂಡ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀನಿ. ದ ರಿಮೈನಿಂಗ್ ದಟ್ ಕಾಂಪೌಂಡ್ ಅನ್ನು ನಾನು ಡಿರೈವ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀನಿ. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಬೇಸ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಡಿರೈವ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್. ಕಟ್ಟುವಾಗ ಜನರಲ್ ಆಗಿ ನಾವು ಮನೆ ಕಟ್ಟುವಾಗ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಕಾಂಪೌಂಡ್ ಕಟ್ತೀವ, ಮನೆ ಕಟ್ತೀವ. ಜನರಲಿ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ವಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ರೈಟ್, we used to construct the home. Is it no? And the base class alli derived class alli ಎರಡರಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ constructor ಇದ್ರೆ, consider in both base class as well as derived class, if you have constructor in both, then first base class constructor will execute, then next derived class constructor it will going to execute. First ಮನೆ ಕಟ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬೇಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸಿಕ್ಯೂಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, then later on derived constructor will going to execute in constructor function. Whereas when you come on destructor, ಮನೆ ಹೊಡೆದಾಕುವಾಗ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಕಾಂಪೌಂಡನ್ನು ಹೊಡೆದಾಕ್ತೀವಿ, then later on we have to destroy the home. Is it no? It means that when you have destructor function, how exactly the destructor function will work in inheritance means, first the destructor function will execute in derived class. Derived class ಅಲ್ಲಿ first execute ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, then later on it will go to base class. ಅಂದ್ರೆ in both base class as well as derived class, if you have destructor, then first it will going to execute in derived class. ಹೊಡೆದಾಕುವಾಗ compulsory it will execute in first in derived class, later on it will execute in base class, especially in destructor. If you have constructor, on that case first in the base class constructor it will going to execute, then later on derived class constructor it will going to execute. ಜನರಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಈಗ ನಾನು ಮನೇನ ಎಂತ ಕರಿತೀನಿ, ಬೇಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀನಿ, ಕಾಂಪೌಂಡನ್ನ ಡಿರೈವ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್, ಮನೇನ ಬೇಸ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀನಿ, ಕಾಂಪೌಂಡನ್ನ ಡಿರೈವ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀನಿ. ಕಟ್ಟುವಾಗ ಅಂದರೆ ಕನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಟರ್ನ ಕಟ್ಟೋದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಟರ್ನ ಹೊಡೆದಾಕೋದು ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಕಟ್ಟುವಾಗ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಯಾವುದನ್ನ ಕಟ್ತೀವಿ, ನಾವು ಮನೆ ಕಟ್ತೀವಿ, ಮನೆ ಕಟ್ಟಾದ ನಂತರ ಕಾಂಪೌಂಡ್ ಕಟ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಟರ್ ಎರಡು ಬೇಸ್ as well as derived class. In both the class if you are constructor, then first base class constructor will going to execute, then next derived class constructor it will going to execute. But if you have the destructor, if you have destructor in both base class as well as derived class, ಹೊಡೆದಾಕೋದು ಅನ್ನುವಾಗ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ನಾವು ಮನೆ ಹೊಡೆದಾಕೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಕಾಂಪೌಂಡ್ ಹೊಡೆದಾಕ್ತೀವಿ, ದೆನ್ ಮನೆ ಹೊಡೆದಾಕ್ತೀವಿ. Then it means that when you have in destructor, especially how the destructor will work in inheritance means, first the destructor function will execute in the derived class. ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಹೊಡೆದಾಕುವಾಗ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಡಿರೈವ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಹೊಡೆದಾಕುತ್ತೆ, then next it is going to execute in the base class. If you have destructor in both base class as well as derived class, then first in the derived class it will go to execute, Then next, later on it will go back to the base class destructor. This is regarding your how exactly this constructor as well as destructor will work in inheritance. Whereas on this class, what are the things we explained regarding inheritance? What do you mean by inheritance? That is advantage of inheritance, types of inheritance, as well as visibility mode. Then with that, virtual base class as well as abstract class. Virtual base class is mainly used to avoid the duplication of the same data, to avoid the duplication, accessing of the same data. By making the base class as virtual, we can able to avoid the duplication. Whereas abstract class is a class, it is used to create a derived class, but by using this, we are not able to create the base, especially the object of a class. Abstract class alli object na create ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕೆ, ಹೊಸದು derived class ಅನ್ನು create ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. That is regarding your abstract class. Next class we will continue with the remaining thing. Thank you all of you.